I think the fundamental challenge, which is likely to be psychological, the fundamental psychological challenge of 1 billion people is this unconscious fear of being seen in public. People have this fear which they do not recognize, the fear of showing up online and being seen, being heard. And that can be seen in the number one fear that people have, which is public speaking. One comedian said people are more afraid of public speaking, in other words, making the eulogy, than they are of death, in other words, of being in the casket, which is really irrational. But it's still a fear that people have, and they're not conscious of it. They're afraid of being seen online, where there's no danger. Nobody online is going to assault you, obviously, because it's online. But, you know, I realize today that people have this fear, like even very smart people, educated, wise people have this fear. And I think that that's the one challenge that 1 billion people on LinkedIn have, because they do have the knowledge. They can teach to people who are behind them, let's say 3 or 5 years or 10 years behind them. So there's always going to be someone who is behind you, and you can teach those people, and they can be thousands of people. But because people have this fear of being seen online, they do not teach even on Zoom, where it's so convenient. And so I want to help people to acknowledge that they have this fear of public speaking, even like virtual public speaking. They have this fear. So we have to examine, like, where does this fear come in? Like, if they talk to someone in a private conversation, they don't have this fear of speaking up and expressing themselves. If they talk to two people, in person or online, they don't have this fear. So what is the number of people, so that by the time we reach that number, they begin to have this fear? Is it 5 people? Is it 10 people? So I think for most people, as soon as there are maybe 5 or 6 people in front of them, then they begin to have this fear of public speaking, like even on YouTube or in a Zoom session or a live stream on YouTube and Facebook. And so this is something we have to acknowledge, because if you have this fear and you don't recognize it as a fear, you will justify it as something, oh, I don't want to appear in public because I'm a private person. But people don't realize that there is a cost associated with such a belief, with such a definition. And so regardless of the excuses that people have or the unconscious beliefs that they have, the fact remains that if you are a knowledgeable person, and if you have succeeded in your life in an important area, career, business, finance, dating, marriage, parenting, if you have succeeded and it's clear to other people objectively that you have succeeded, then by having this unconscious fear, it stops you from teaching online. And so there are people who are excellent professionals, managers, entrepreneurs, business people, but it never occurred to them to show up in a Zoom session and live stream. Like, just live streaming with your voice, which is what I'm doing right now, would would give you a head start in your financial journey. And then they would say something, oh, I'm good, I don't really need the money. But that's a lie that people tell themselves, because whether they're investors, whether they're successful business people, teaching online, creating a video course, a live stream, a Zoom webinar, it's very pleasant and you make easy money. So people are lying to themselves because they want to protect this fear, which comes from the ego. The ego is a very fragile aspect of yourself. It's not real, but people think that their ego is real, so they want to protect that ego. And the ego, for example, does not want to be publicly viewed, because the ego is really afraid of being judged. And so it's this fear of judgment that we're talking about. It's not really fear of public speaking, because speaking in public, kids can do that. There's no fear attached to that. The fear comes from the ego that people have, and they're not aware of this ego. All right, so they identify with this body, identify with this this ego, which is a fragile version of themselves, and therefore they don't want to expose that ego to the world, because the world, and this is what they're thinking, the world is going to judge them. It's going to judge them negatively, because they judge themselves negatively, right? So if you think that you're a great person, obviously you believe that, well, not obviously, but you might believe that other people think that you're a great person as well. So you don't mind appearing online. You don't mind appearing on your Instagram channel, Facebook, TikTok. You just want to be seen by people because you think you're amazing. And so people have to ask themselves, like, if I'm afraid to be seen publicly on YouTube, on Facebook, is it because I don't appreciate myself? I don't view myself as worthy. I'm afraid of being judged. And because I judge myself negatively, I predict that other people will judge me negatively as well. So these are questions that people have to ask, but it doesn't really matter what excuses you come up with, what negative beliefs or definitions. Ultimately, the result is that, or the test is, you ask yourself, are you teaching, in public? If you're not teaching on Zoom, which is very easy because you can use OBS Studio and you can live stream and just share your thoughts, which is what I'm doing right now, then there is something that is blocking you. And so in your own private home, or maybe with a trusted friend, you can explore what is it that is stopping you from publicly teaching what you know. Because like I said, teaching is very pleasant. You get feedback, you get validation about what it is that you know that is valuable. And so there's so many benefits that come from teaching what you know from the comfort of your own home. Okay, this is important. And so you make easy money by teaching on Zoom, but also after you record your Zoom session, you can create video courses and you can sell and generate passive income. So you can be making tens of thousands of dollars in the next few months or years, but tens of thousands of dollars, it doesn't matter what your net worth is. It is significant money. But more than that, you make that additional income without incurring any additional cost, basically, except for your internet service. And so it's so easy to make money. It's so pleasant to make that amount of money, and you can generate passive income. So because of all these benefits, I think it's worth it for people to ask themselves, do I appreciate myself? Do I believe that I'm worth it? I'm worth it for people to spend money, to listen to me, and to hear what I have to say? Like, even if you charge people $10 for a 2-hour Zoom session and you share the best of what you know, it's still $10. And if you multiply by the number of attendees and the future viewers of your video course, that's a lot of money. But again, people have to be honest and ask themselves, why am I afraid of public speaking? Or why am I afraid of being seen on YouTube? You can wear a suit, you can put on makeup, you can really look your best, but still people are afraid to be on YouTube, to be seen. And so it's a very important question to ask, because if you ask yourself that question seriously and you identify the beliefs and definitions and the self-perceptions that you have, then you could very well end up with, the identification of a key obstacle that prevents you from teaching. Because I think that teaching online, even if you teach in a live stream, which is what I'm doing right now, I just record myself on my phone, or you teach to 2 people in a Facebook live stream or YouTube live stream, whether it's 2 people or 10 people or 20, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you start to speak up and you use your mouth to express what you know. You use your mouth to export your valuable knowledge. So once you do that act of teaching, it's going to occur to you that you didn't die. It didn't kill you. It didn't destroy you. It didn't harm you. Nobody judged you. And even if people judge you, it's okay. You survived, right? And so once you cross that bridge, which seems to be like a fragile bridge, very scary, nobody wants to cross that bridge. But once you've crossed it and you realize there's no bridge, it's just a step that you're making in your mind. It's just a simple decision. It's just a realization that nothing bad is going to happen to you when you start teaching. Nobody's going to judge you negatively, and even if they do, nothing happens to you. And so you begin to feel invincible, and you begin to teach like me. You can't shut up anymore. You just go online and you just teach and teach and teach, and more people come because of your free content, which is still valuable, and then they trust you. They become familiar with you. You become like a friend, an advisor. And then when you start to sell video products, software programs, ebooks, they just buy without questions. They still evaluate, if it's for them, but they just buy, and you're going to be well on your way to make a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and life will become so easy and fun that you wish you had done this before. If everyone builds it, everyone gets rich, and it's going to start with